What's up, everyone? Welcome to The Flip Side, a Get Your Teach On podcast where we break down, share, and challenge flip perspectives and insights on different hot topics in education. And today it's hot. Today it's
Let's get spicy.
Probably one of the hottest topics we have had yet in season 2 for sure, but maybe on the podcast ever. We're talking all about standardized testing. It's almost that time of year. Standardized testing, is it stressing or progressing? On the Flip Side couch today, we have 2 of my favorite people. Bree and Christi from 2 Tampa Teachers are here, and we're going to be talking all things standardized testing. What is it doing for students? What is it doing for teachers? Is it stressing or progressing? This is an episode you're not going to want to miss. So let's dive into The Flip Side. All right, so we have taught a number of different grade levels. So before we dive into today's icebreaker, I want to know which grade level that you've taught out of the many do you feel like you were the most comfortable in, where you're like, I got this, I can rock it. What grade level? Well, first of all, tell everyone if they don't know at home, what grade levels have you taught, and what do you feel like was like your sweet spot where you're like, I got this, you're in your stride. So, Hope, I'm going to start with you. You look ready to go.
I'm just watching your eyes go crisscross.
Oh, yeah, the lights.
We're talking about how the lights, we've really just grown with equipment since this podcast began, and the lights are so bright, and your eyes are literally
cross-eyed. I literally thought I was going to pass out in the last one, so this is good. But we're looking good now. We have a tan.
They take away the wrinkles and the dark circles.
Added a filter or something. Okay,
that is
so grade level, where was your sweet spot, would you say, that you were like, I got this?
Or what grades? You asked what grades.
Oh, yeah, ask for your grades. Yeah, your grades too.
I've taught everything from 1st to 7th with the exception of 4th.
Nice.
I've taught 3rd through 8th.
You taught 4th?
Yeah, I did. Nevitt Forest. And PE.
Oh.
Physical education.
What is my favorite?
Not favorite. Where you feel like you were like, I got this. Yeah. It could also be your favorite, but what is like the grade level where you were like, I'm killing it right now?
I would say 3rd or 5th.
Okay, great. Wade?
I don't think it's, I don't know. I don't think it's a grade level. I think it's content.
Oh.
So social studies or science.
Okay. He's a departmentalized guy. Departmentalized guy.
DG.
I was very good at teaching math. I didn't love it, but very good at teaching it. But yeah, but grade level, I would say 5th or 8th.
Okay, great. For me, I would say 3rd grade, sweet spot. Like, I mean, if you're a 3rd grade teacher, you already know it's a good grade. Like, you could do what you want to do. They're like really like
3rd grade is hard.
Yeah, that's why I love it.
Me too.
That's the first time they're tested.
Let's crush this. Like, I really love 3rd grade.
Because I actually like standardized testing.
Yeah,
so
that's perfect for today. So,
same
for standardized testing, I thought we'd do some standardized testing with you all. Okay. So today's icebreaker is: are you smarter than a?
No, I think I got a 1,000 on the SAT.
5th grader. Okay.
No, I'm kidding. I should have better than that.
That is not true. All right. So I'm going to ask you questions now. These can range anywhere from kindergarten level questions to 5th grade questions.
Those who can't do teach, right?
Wade's going to be really good at this.
No, I am not going to.
He'll be better at some because, a lot of those type questions are
No, expectations.
Okay, and it can be for either of you. So
whoa,
you can just like chime in.
Maybe eventually I'll get on Travis Kelce's show.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Are you smarter than a celebrity?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which it's not.
I wouldn't be
not hard to do.
Obviously,
yeah.
I would be the normal human.
Yeah. The commoner. All right, here we go. The Statue of Liberty was a gift from where?
France.
Wow.
Wow, I actually knew that one too.
Okay, so maybe we should put some rules in place so we have it. So maybe you just.
You just say it.
Okay, just say it.
Here we go.
You just better.
Every man for themselves.
Okay, here we go.
Or a woman.
What country did Mexico gain its independence from in the 1800s? Who invented the light bulb?
Thomas Edison.
Tie. Okay. What are the 2 main languages spoken in South America?
Portuguese and Spanish.
No, it's not Spanish. Oh, South America. I thought you said South Africa.
Right.
Yeah.
No, he's right.
That's because he has all his spider friends from there.
Okay, I really need to get something that's not history here so we can have a fair shot in this game. Okay.
That's not history.
Let's talk about the schwa.
They're all geography and history.
No, they're okay.
Oh, yeah, sure, Val. Okay. A story conveying a moral lesson is called what?
Fable.
I love a smart king.
Gee.
I married a smart man.
What is the main character in a story called?
The protagonist?
Yeah, girl, you got one. It's on the board.
was like-
It's on the board.
I was like, main character?
All right. Which is an example of alliterative language? The ocean glistened as the day turned to night, or the sea shimmered with
The sea shimmer with the she shimmer.
Okay.
Well, let's see if you can say it.
I cannot
Yeah,
say it.
exactly. Speaking.
Whoever can say
Speaking
it.
listening.
that.
Sea shimmered by the
Okay.
seashore shimmered.
Find the preposition in the sentence. The pretty calico cat sat on the kitchen table.
On.
Nice. Which is a type of poem? Graph, sonnet, essay.
Sonnet.
I'm just dead. Who knew you were this smart?
I know, geez. It's really,
Just call me Steven.
it's baffling.
Stop. Stop it. Stop it. Did you hear what he said?
Mhm.
I can't even talk about that on this podcast. He said, just call me Steven. If you know, you know.
Oh, geez.
If you know,
that
you
is-
know.
Yeah.
It's a very
it's a
smart
show.
character in a show
In a
that
show.
And he's not very handsome.
Naughty show.
Aw.
Yes, he is. He's
And he's got a horrible home life.
in his own way.
Just smart.
What is the name of the most famous English playwright?
Shakespeare.
Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
What is the name of the most famous English playwright?
William
Shakespeare.
There you go.
I said Shakespeare
You
first.
said Shakespeare. No.
Oh, no. I said
You
Shakespeare.
didn't commit.
Oh,
Um,
Are these actual
She stole
standardized testing
mine.
questions?
I got
no, these
Oh,
are already
okay,
smarter than a
okay.
fifth grade.
Oh, got
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Got
I
it.
got
Got it.
that one.
I
That's
hope
mine.
not.
Got it.
You would need pen, paper, and 5 sheets of scrap paper to do your work for standardized testing questions.
Got it.
They'd be part A, B, C, D, E, F, and everything in between. What is an antonym for beautiful, pretty, gorgeous?
Ugly.
Jeez.
I mean, you're so fast.
I mean, it's
my
throwing me
brain
off.
is just hearing the
can't s-
question.
I can't swipe. Yeah, I can't swipe fast enough. Okay. And that would be it. There we go. I skipped the math ones because it requires you to do things. So
Wow.
the champion who is smarter than a 5th grader, Michael Wade King.
Wow.
We need Joanne's applause sign for that.
This is why I slept in all my classes.
What do you say? You're good at few things. You're good at a lot of things, but excellent at nothing. Is that what you say about yourself?
I have no clue.
Yes, you talk
Well-
about this all the time. That you're.
Oh, yes. I'm good at everything, but
I'm not really excellent at anything.
Yeah,
Huh.
because he can
Well,
play the guitar, he can play the drums, he can play the bass, he can play the piano, but he
I could
can't,
beat
like,
people up.
Yeah, but he can't like play any one instrument. Like,
oh, I see.
well, the guitar. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
I
like-
just don't.
Expert in the
commit.
craft, you
Yeah.
would say, of that. Yeah, well, 5th grade trivia, you nailed it.
nailed it.
Nailed it. 5th
Good
grade.
at that.
Woo!
There you go. All right, let's dive into today's episode of The Flip Side. Here we go. Straight from the 813 Tampa,
We
Florida.
had to ask them that. You know, don't think that Chris just knows the area code.
I didn't know that, but I was
Just
like,
ask
oh, it'd be
them.
fun if I did. So I just asked them, like, what's
Smarter than
the
a fifth
area
grader
code?
question.
Yeah. Everyone listening is like,
He's like Justin.
And neither of us have the area code.
716-131-214-4445.
Also, before we start, Wade, good luck getting any words in this episode.
I'm not.
Sorry.
It is 4
I'm
of the most talkative.
Yay.
Oh,
I'm
buddy.
totally fine with that.
It is 4 of the most talkative people and
No, no.
Wade in the history
Take
of
a nap.
Just leave
ever.
the camera on
Take
him
a
so we
nap.
know he's there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just we'll do
Leave.
check.
I'll be like Tia if you saw our Halloween episode. I'm
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's gonna be the
If
Tia.
every
That's
10
funny.
minutes we could just do a Wade check-in, that would be
Yeah,
great.
we're
because
like, wait, okay, you have the floor for 1 minute.
Oh,
He's like, okay, Bree, stop. All right, next. You have to
I
think
love it,
about
Four of us
but
can hold our own, but
I know
Wade.
we have Bree Tavares and Bree. We have Christi Tavares. I already mixed it up because I was worried about Tavares. We have Christi Tavares and Bree Roberts here, 2 Tampa coaches in the house. Go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone. You guys have been together to teach on it many times. You've served in our Magic Squad.
Yep.
You were in our instructional lab last summer at Nationals. You met these 2
Woo!
ladies as they were holding down the fort there. But go ahead and introduce yourselves. Tell them a little bit about who you are, what you do. Christi, I'll start with you, and then Bree will go over.
Yes. So Bree and I became best friends when we worked at the same school together. We taught for 4 years. She taught 5th, I taught 4th. And then from there, we became instructional coaches
Together.
together. And so for 3 years, we were instructional coaches. We loved working together, working with teachers and impacting teachers. We still live in Tampa. And then Bree?
Well, let's see. We got on a plane one day to go to a PD, and we sat in the Atlanta airport, and we were like, okay,
We love them.
we want to do something else with this. So
Yes.
that's when the 2 Tampa Teachers was created.
Oh, I
And
read it.
then-
Was the guarantee job?
Oh, no,
Oh,
it was
okay,
RCA.
okay. Got it.
Oh my god.
Yes.
And so then we sat in the airport, we created the Instagram, and we were like, we can do something more.
Yes.
And actually that year we taught at different schools for a whole year, but still kept going with it.
Mhm.
And then I got the opportunity to be an instructional coach, and I was like, I know someone else that could do it too. So I brought her back and we got to coach together for a couple years. And since then I have stepped into the admin role, but we still work together and make it work.
Yes, and when we flew into the Atlanta airport coming here today, we had a little nostalgia because it was such a little full circle moment, and so it was
Love
nice.
that. Now,
yeah.
speaking of coming here today,
Yeah.
you had some trouble.
Yes.
Some
Yes.
trouble this morning. So, Christi, I'll
Yes.
turn it over to you.
Yes.
Let us know your journey to get.
Okay.
First of all, I love hearing everyone's travel stories to get here. If you don't know, we film the podcast in our warehouse.
We are in
and,
the sticks.
in the sticks. She said it, not me. She's from here.
Yep.
But Anderson, South Carolina, and it is not a hop, skip, and a jump. It is like leaps and skips and jumps
right.
and trains and
Yes.
buses to
Yeah.
get here. So when our guests are here on the couch, they have committed to being
Truly.
here. So
Yes.
Christi, tell us about your travel day.
Okay, so I have a 1-year-old. Next week is her birthday. She'll be
Aw.
1. And so I have the Monitor app on my phone, and so I listen to that. But her sound machine in her room is really loud,
Yeah.
right? You,
Yeah, yeah.
you don't
We
want to
love
wake
a
a
sound
sleeping
hour.
baby.
Yep.
And so I made sure to set my alarm, really early. We had an early flight, and I made sure to look at, the monitor and have my phone up and the volume, and everything was good. Went to sleep. I woke up to my dog pitter pattering around my room. And I look around and then I'm like, oh my God, why is he awake? And so then I looked at my phone. It was 5:36. My alarm was 5 o'clock. I quickly shot up out of bed. I opened the door because he was scratching at the door. And who's in my home? Bree. Bree was literally
Thank
in
God
my
I know your
house
door
Pick
code.
you up.
to
Oh my
wake me
gosh.
up. And she did. And I got ready in 4 minutes.
You go, girl.
Wow.
Yes, the bag was packed. I was very prepared, and we got to the airport. We're here. But that was my story.
What
Oh
a
my
true
God.
best.
I would have done
What a-
anything to
code.
take a picture of her face when she opened her bedroom
you were
door.
there.
She was like,
Were you texting her before that?
I
are you,
blew her up,
oh,
and
so
I
you
called
knew there
her
was an
4 or
issue?
5 times because I was running 10 or 15 minutes behind, but I kept her updated, and she wasn't responding yet, which is not
Oh,
Christi.
no.
And so I pull in, and I'm like,
Oh, no.
I'm here. And then I'm waiting a little bit longer,
Right.
and I was like, all right. And I've called her 4 or 5 times at this point, and I'm like, I'm going to go and let myself into her house. And I did, and we made it.
That's,
And there
thank
we
God
go.
for the door
Yes,
code.
we did.
Wow.
Else you'd be throwing rocks at the windows.
I love that. I love that. So, but you made it.
Yes.
Looking great.
Thank you for having
And
us.
we're so excited you're here. But today's topic is all about standardized testing. Is it stressing or progressing? And what does that look like? So, first of all, let us know I would love to hear from you all. When you hear standardized testing, what do you think, not even your personal beliefs, what do you think often teachers think, first of all, when they hear standardized testing?
Yeah. I'll start. When I hear the word standardized testing as an educator, I think pressure. I think a lot of anxiety comes from that. And then also, do my students know what they need to know in order to pass that test?
All
That's what I think.
I would say I think of a goal. I always looked at standardized testing as a goal. And now in my role, I look at standardized testing as money because in the end, that's how we get our money for our kids.
Wow. Interesting how the shift has happened there. Now, would you say, if you had to take a ballpark, majority of teachers support standardized testing or are against it? What would you think for teachers?
I think I would say they're against it.
Okay.
Yeah, I would think they're against it.
Yes. And in the coaching position, of course, when we're working with teachers to try and help them be the most effective educator that they can be in the classroom, a lot of the times what we need to do is mention, this will be on the test because a lot of times, they're doing all these great things in the classroom or they're trying and we're there to support them with their needs. But the end goal, like Bree just said, is the test and what standards and benchmarks they need to know at the end of that grade level. So I think a lot of teachers are also feeling that anxiety and pressure from it too.
Yeah, well, you hit it nail on the head because 80% of educators say they feel moderate.
Oh,
or
here comes
large.
the data.
There you go. You already know. 80%
Where's the
of-
lightsabers?
80% of educators say they feel moderate or large amount of pressure or stress for their students to perform well on standardized tests.
Yeah.
So there you go.
I would definitely, I think that's definitely what we, see as far as patterns, trends, conversations with
Yeah.
teachers. But obviously we understand that too, you have to be able to show results. Like you want to show that what those teaching strategies are, the things that we're teaching is working. I will say a big shift that I have noticed in standardized testing when I specifically was teaching in the classroom, the way this mic is making me literally cross-eyed. It's just not working for me. But anyway,
You kind of look like a guinea pig in a cage that you're like getting the water bottle.
I do feel
Yeah,
I'm going.
that's kind of the vibe that's going.
I will
Not that
say-
you look like a guinea pig, just to clarify. It's just the where the mic is.
I will say so much of it that I think is frustrating for teachers, and it's a state-by-state basis. But in the state of South Carolina, what our standards were, that was what our test was.
Yep, it was a
And
line.
now for some reason, and this is where I am like wanting to knock on the door of who like get inside of the brain, who's making these tests?
Yeah.
Because it's like, here's the standards, which we are taught as that should be
That's your
goal,
Bible.
right? That's your goal. And I am all about being standards based. But then when the assessment assesses anything but the standard to make it, I mean, so many of these assessments are making it look like, number one, students never go to school, apparently. Number two, it's like for teachers, why am I even showing up every single day? Because if we're only going by the standardized test score and what we're seeing across the nation, there is a massive deficit and there is not much progress being made. However, teachers are in school every day. Some kids are in school every day.
They're
Some
doing the
kids-
work.
They're doing the work. So it's not demonstrating the correct progress that's being made in schools. So that's what I'm hearing a lot of, seeing a lot of evidence of when it comes to standardized testing.
Not to mention, I feel like teachers are having to obviously do their job and teach their kids, but they're having to teach their kids how to take a test instead of teaching
Take a
their
test.
kids the standards that they need to move on.
Yeah.
But in the end, the test is essentially what helps them move on
Right.
with the way it
And
goes,
to add to that
flows.
too, in our school specifically, a lot of the curriculums that we're using are not aligned to the test.
Standards
So,
and
or
tests,
to the, I mean, of course we can preach the standards and benchmarks and this is what your end goal is. You don't need to do every page in the workbook. A lot of times the curriculum that we're given does not align to what they see on their tests.
Yeah.
So now we have,
That's the
we have
frustrating
three
part.
different roads,
Yeah.
Yes.
not leading to
Yeah.
the same place. I remember in elementary school, as Hope was talking, I was like, I'm trying to think of my standardized tests. I never felt stressed. I wasn't even like a thing for me then. Like it was just like we did this. I felt like I was ready for it. I felt like I couldn't wait to get the
When
back
you were a student,
as a student. Yeah, as a
Right.
student, I couldn't wait to get like the bag of manipulatives and like do all the things and like the paper ruler that you got. Like I felt very prepared, and it wasn't a thing that was like added on. But I don't see that in education. Even when I started my teaching career, that was not the climate of standardized testing and what it looked like for teachers, for students, or things like that.
Yeah.
But I did feel like growing up as a student, it actually did show what I learned from my teacher that year, which was beneficial, obviously.
So when we started the conversation, you guys both said, I said it too. You guys both said that you appreciate and like standardized testing.
Yeah.
So I want you to clarify because I know what you meant by that.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
but,
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah.
I do think, I mean, with standardized testing, when we talk about it, there's obviously data daddy over here. Like there is valuable information from it when you're trying to compare school to school, progress overall. If everyone is like, it is important for big picture data. Now, if you've ever been to get your teacher on or ever had a conversation with me or probably even been on a date with me, I've probably talked about it or something like that.
Maybe this is the problem. Maybe
Literally.
let's
Yeah,
just
definitely
switch the
don't talk
conversation.
about that. Yeah,
maybe
this
let's
is
switch the
fine.
conversation
Exactly. But obviously, day to day, that is not going to do anything to move kids. That data that you're getting from a standardized test is never going to, that's a one shot, one day, unfortunately, maybe few weeks of time spent on that. That is not a snapshot of the work that's happening every day that
Every
we've
day.
talked about. But I do not think the answer is to eliminate standardized testing, which I think a lot of people say, well, this isn't working. You need to eliminate it. It just needs to be shifted to be meaningful, actually what's
Standards based.
standards based, what's happening in the classroom every day. And you're going to get great information from that. That's going to kind of see, okay, this school is doing this school's doing this. How can we compare? The problem is that most standardized testing in many states, this school has this version of the test, this school has this version of the test, because someone somewhere is trying out these different variables of what's going to work.
There's different testing
There's
windows.
different testing
They can
windows,
take it-
different testing time.
Yeah.
Some third grade classes, depending on now, a lot of standardized testing is on the computer. Schools don't have the access to do that a lot of times. So this third grade test is taking it at the beginning of March. The other ones are not taking it till the end of March almost. And it is not an accurate picture of what's actually happening in schools, which is my problem with it. But I don't think the answer is eliminate all standardized testing as often in the news or we hear that. So that's what I meant by I like standardized testing.
You like data.
I like, yeah,
Yeah.
No, that is
I don't like data. I
true.
love data.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, as coaches, we do preach on the fact that you do not need to give that 20 multiple choice question test at the end of every unit.
Right.
That, and if you're not seeing results from that, it's most likely because some of those items on that assessment they're not well written.
Yeah.
And that comes back to the curriculum. But there should be an alternative for how students can show their mastery of these standards, rather than, like you said, like a one size fits all. Is it paper based? Is it computer based? And I think that would be more helpful.
It'd be very helpful.
All right, I'm going to pause you there. We are at 13 minutes.
Does that
We're
mean
doing a
it's
weight
time?
check. Yeah, we're doing a weight
Wait, check.
now.
I'm here.
Weight check. Yeah, he's still here. He's
Wade,
still
what would you
here.
like to tell us about testing and your feeling?
This is the
60
necessary.
60 seconds on the dot and go.
Yeah, exactly.
On the dot.
Yeah, they're on the dot. Shout out to Chase
Yeah.
for on the dot.
No, I mean, I double down on what Chris said. I mean, it's standardized tests aren't, and we're never going to have the same thing across the board. That's what No Child Left Behind was, and it didn't work. And it can be very useful and powerful. I mean, the data is great. It's useful, but yeah, I don't know. Just yes.
Wade was more of a, I'll speak for Wade.
Shocking.
That's anything. No, Wade was more of a benchmark guy. I mean, you wanted to excel on but you appreciated benchmarks because you actually use those in your instruction.
Yeah, I use, and
as you-
I mean,
Like
we use map. I mean, I've always just been my teaching strength, I think, and teaching superpower was always test taking for my students, preparing them for them, no matter what they were taking. It didn't matter if it was in South Carolina, Atlanta, outside of Atlanta, whatever it was. But that was because I could decipher what the test was going to kind of look like. And I don't know. I think you prepare your kids for the game, and it's our job to figure out what the game's going to look like.
Yeah.
I mean,
So, I mean, we all know, I think, and we all agree with just, again, the system, the way the shifts have happened over the course of even just I'm looking back even 5 years, ago, and how different things are. So we obviously know that I don't think that there's any educator out there who was like, standardized testing is done so well in this nation, and oh my gosh, we just love it. And it's we realize the pressures, the stress, the anxiety that it puts on this profession as a whole, on the teachers, on the kids, on the parents. But I mean, really, what can we do within our control with it? Because here's the thing, is I'm like, when we get so caught up in how bad the test is, what are we going to do about that?
Yeah.
Nobody's
Out of our control.
Yeah.
It's out of our control. So especially in the roles that you guys have, which is why I'm so excited to talk to you in coaching and an administrative role, what can we do within the realms of our control as teachers, as administrators, to, number one, not just say, okay, because I think this is the wrong way to go about it. Who cares about the test? It is what it is. Because then that's giving, a lot of times teachers are like, oh, then I just don't even need to teach anymore.
Yeah.
Right? So how do we keep the boundaries of strong instruction, students progressing, students making gains, while also not throwing the test away and saying it's meaningless, who cares, but also not let it cause such trauma and such stress and anxiety within teachers?
It's true. I think a big thing is making sure that people aren't afraid to talk about their data and look at their data. I know RAP, my first year teaching, I never really used data until she required it of us. I mean, I was a first year teacher too, and I never had to do that in student teaching or anything, but she forced it. Every Tuesday, we were looking at our scores from the previous week, and it might have just been a curriculum test, but it was still something. And then to go off of that, now one thing that Florida has done is we had the writing test last year, but it didn't count for anyone. But usually when these kids take a test, we get their number, we get their score, and we never see anything else. We don't look at the test when they're taking it, right? We never get to see the questions that are on the test. But the fact that we can see that writing on their on their student portals now, I think is a game changer, because we're given that information, and teachers, we can help those teachers take that information and see how they can change their teaching and have their students also look at their previous year's writing and actually grow from
use it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've just got to use it and not be scared of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think too, and I mean, Chris will obviously go to town on talking about this, but I think so much of it as a teacher, I want to know the day-to-day that what strategies I'm using is, again, if I'm standards-based, and I know, because we've talked on the podcast about this too, there's a lot of times that even curriculum isn't standards-based. There are a heck of a lot of standards that's in that curriculum that are my standards, even though this is what we've adopted and been told to teach to fidelity. I might not be my standards. I know my standards, and that's what I'm teaching, obviously, because that's what I'm held accountable for. But then I think getting those, and, I used to not be a fan of data either, and I used to just think, oh my gosh, it's just one more thing. I don't have time. I'm trying to teach my kids. But then when you see the power of the day-to-day and it impacting your instructional decisions, as a teacher, if I see my students mastering standards, then at least with that standardized testing within I've taught my standards. What else can I possibly do? And hopefully that will show and demonstrate results. I mean, that's
a level 4, a level 5, level 2, level 1 is never going to tell you anything about a student, and that's often how these are ranked, graded, things like that. The day-to-day student work, actually looking at what they're doing, that's going to move students. When I was a coach and then administrator, one thing that we did is we used those kind of day-to-days, and there was someone somewhere, I don't know, genius somewhere that I probably need to find out who did this, but they made some correlation from our daily benchmarks, which was used iReady at the time, for daily and diagnostic, and then it was a correlation to this is how they would perform
on a standardized test. Yeah.
We used that from the first day of school.
Yep, same.
For every single student.
Yep.
And by the end of the year, almost every single student was exactly what we had projected because we coached them there. So they're projected at a 1. I know the exact strategies I need to give them here because I'm not going to be working here. I need to give them exactly what they need here. Now they're at a 2. Okay, now we're halfway through the year. How can I push this group to a 3? Let's split them up on these teachers and have that created our plan. That was an individualized kind of way of how we doubled down on our students and really saw those results. And that was the year we jumped from literally a D to a high B+ in just all hands on deck, because it's not just you in your classroom.
Yeah.
It's going to be impossible.
That's what we
mentality and mindset throughout.
Yeah, that's what we did. I remember at Pendleton Elementary School too, 3rd through 5th grade specifically. At the end of the day, there was 45 minutes called enrichment time, which most schools have enrichment time, but we would use that data from MAP at the time, but iLearn, whatever, same thing, and it would say, hey, they're not there yet, they are there, or they're above,
and then, specific.
And then us as teachers, us 5th grade teachers, we would divide the kids up, and they would come to us, and then we would revisit it every 2 weeks, and they would just rotate throughout whatever they needed.
But again, that's targeting areas of weakness versus teaching a curriculum.
Some days it was math day, some days it was ELA days, whatever it was.
Like, I think that is really, when I found the most success on standardized testing is when I was targeting, again, the specific standards, but targeting where my students were and getting as many to mastery as I possibly could. But I want to shift for a second, because here's another, we talked about the teacher's perspective. And, honestly, as a teacher, like we all talked about, if you're teaching your standards, you have those daily, points of check and points of mastery, and you're seeing progress and you're targeting those areas of weakness. What more can you honestly do? You're not going to write the test, right?
Yeah.
But when you shift to students, I'm kind of like wondering, where has this gone wrong in stressing out kids? Because at the end of the day, as a kid, really all they should be taught and told as a life is do your very best. Like, show up. I mean, first of all, if we're going to do this, like Wade talked about, if you're going to be in the game, be in the game. You're not going to be on the court and walking down the court or jogging down the court or not playing defense in a game. Be in the game. And I think we can teach kids how to do that. But where has the shift happened that it's less about kids just doing their very best and being taught what their best looks like and how to be, to kids being completely stressed out and traumatized by this? Like, what have y'all noticed?
I mean, personally, in our school, we are ability group. And I know that that's a huge confidence decreaser or increaser for students, because if you're in with the smarter kids, you're getting enriched by that teacher because they have the skills and strategies to do so. So they're able to increase those scores. But if you're in the lower class, and of course we can go into socioeconomic status and we can really correlate those correlations with some data that Chris can find later.
He's already looking at there. I see him.
When it comes to those individual classes of lower kids, that teacher may not be equipped with those strategies. So as coaches, that's where we step in and we explicitly tell that teacher what standards are and what benchmarks are, and show them in the curriculum where they need to differentiate in small groups, just that low class alone, because you will have those higher kids in that lower ability class, and they do need different needs, whereas the lower kids in that class will need very much remediation from the grade level prior. So there's a lot of different needs that come for students. I think overall, as you said, the mantra should be try your best or do your best, or in this class, we don't quit. Like, we're not going to quit in a sports game. Even if you're on the sidelines for this round because you don't understand it, we're going to get you back in that small group.
Yeah.
And I think that mentality is so needed in schools from day one. But the problem is a lot of schools don't put that game time mentality until
the test.
It's game time.
That's what stresses the kids
here's
out.
the pep rally. Now here's what you have to do.
Yeah.
If that's something you're doing every day, which I come from an environment of schools where that is literally, that is a 365 what we do. That is the, no matter if it's a standardized test, no matter if it's a Friday, no matter if it's Halloween, that is how we're going to operate. If you're doing it and you're like, okay, now we're going to do a pep rally. We're going to put all these things. We're going to have testing. That is overwhelming for a student.
Yes.
So that has to be something that you're growing and conditioning students for every single day in your classroom. This is the expectation. This is what work ethic looks like. This is what best effort looks like for math. This is what best effort looks like for reading. And those strategies every single day.
Yep.
So it's not a test-taking strategy. It's just a strategy to do your best and show your best effort with everything you do. And I think that's where the disconnect is. Majority of schools do not do that as a daily practice. It's a, what are we doing for standardized testing?
Season.
Testing season.
Yes.
And I think a lot of it too kind of goes back, which everything does in teaching, to like school culture and relationships with your kids, because as long as you are doing everything you're supposed to do as a teacher and you are giving those kids everything they need and you know your standards and you fully understand your standards, then those kids just get to treat that big test like they would any other assessment or assignment. It's not anything
it's nothing
special.
different.
Yeah.
But when you target that one time of the year, or in Florida that because we take it 3 times a year, you know, teachers, administration, they're talking about it, and then they're letting parents know. And then parents, I believe, don't know everything about the standardized test to where it just scares them. And then that's a big part that stresses out the kids too.
Yep.
And the parents and the anxiety that they even have for their child to perform at their best.
Yep.
And it's just
Yeah, I have family members,
it's a lot for everyone.
cousins that are like, oh no, we're opting out of all standardized. I know they're not listening to this, but if they are, they do it. So it's true. But that they opt out of standardized tests. Like they're like, for their kids, they're like, I'm not doing it. And as a teacher, I'm like, because they're just
that's what I want.
They're literally like that. I don't see the benefit of that personally.
Right.
Like that's just my personal choice. I know other people have different reasons. The anxiety is there, but I just feel like this is what we're doing because it has to be a daily thing. But my assumption would be that it's probably at that school where they're at a high stress, last minute push of this is what's going to look like. It's there. It's not a, okay, now it's time to rock it, show what you know. It's that motivation and mindset that I think changes everything for how the students feel about it. If they're pumped up, ready to go, they're going to feel good. They're going to perform well. If they're feeling like, oh my gosh, this is too much pressure, that's where the stress kind of comes in and that student feeling.
Yeah, and I think it's so what you guys said too about you brought up the testing season, right? And I think we've got to ditch that. I think we've got to by constantly hyperfixating on that, having all of the narrative be no wonder kids, parents, teachers are all stressed out when, again, if this is a 365 mentality every day, I don't care if it's the smallest assignment, I don't care if it's a test, I don't care if it's a writing, I don't care what, every time we are going to give our 100% best effort that we have in that moment. And I mean, I think it's really simplifying the narrative that we as a society are putting around it. But the thing about this kind of shift is it's going to be not a shift that you can even do just in a year.
No.
Because now 5th graders have been taught since kindergarten, testing season, like this is retraining and reprogramming kind of the thinking behind teachers and educators. But if we don't retrain our thinking and programming, we can never retrain the thinking and programming of kids. So the more that we hyperfixate on testing season and call it that, and what, to your point, only make it 2 weeks out of the year, that's what it's going to continuously be for teachers, for students, for parents, versus communication, clear. We were just talking about this on an episode and I don't even know if I'm backwards in my airing sometimes.
You're probably backwards, but it's fine.
But with Joanne about parent communication, clear, concise communication.
I think it airs next week, honest. I think.
It's coming,
I
guys.
think. Might be a portion. I'm pretty sure it's the weekend.
But I didn't even really think about that. I was asking the question in all honesty about where does this come from? And I do think that's all you ever hear come, March, April, depending on when it happens. Testing season, it's testing season. Hey guys, it's testing season. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong though with forcing focusing on it is testing season, because I think if you don't talk about it or imply that it isn't, because it is important.
I think it just needs to be, it shouldn't be a season. It should just be the way it is.
That's what
it is. And then the motivation increases. You know that it's coming. It's not like, oh, we're showing up on Monday. So there is that motivation, there is that prep. But
Right.
the fact that it would just start early is, I think, the problem there.
Or come out of nowhere.
Mhm.
Right.
That's the
Nowhere.
problem is when it
Yeah.
comes out of nowhere.
Yes.
It's like on the
That's
calendar, it's like, oh,
That's different.
it's
time.
March 13th.
Oh, now I
everybody.
gotta pay
Testing
attention.
season
Oh,
has
shoot.
begun. The
Yeah.
sun now sets an
Right.
hour early.
Now we're
like
going to
all those
learn
things.
everything we need to learn that we didn't
But
get to
I mean,
yet.
it goes back to your point of you're not just teaching the content, you're teaching them how to take the test, and that happens all year long. Like,
Yes, and
you're
that's
preparing
another
them
thing.
all
It's
year.
testing strategy,
Yes.
right? So, like, a part of the anxiety when I was a teacher, like you were saying earlier, Wade, is you're teaching testing strategies
Mhm.
the entire year.
Mhm.
And a lot of educators may not be doing so. So when it
Right.
does become the big championship game or testing weeks, I think a lot of students really kind of go into their little shell of nervousness and
'Cause
testing
it's different.
anxiety
It's different than what they're used to day
It's
to
not
day.
the
Yes.
same.
because they don't know the testing strategies for those exams.
Exactly.
And I mean, I think it's, a matter of building confidence and telling your kids, I have taught you
Yeah.
what you need to know.
This is a celebration
doesn't
of what you do.
mean-
Yeah.
Great.
You are
Yeah.
prepared.
That doesn't
We used to do carnivals. It was a good time. Probably one of your resources from shenanigans.
Oh my gosh. Talk about the dinosaurs.
Throwback.
Oh, Lord. But oh shoot, what was I gonna say? It was something. What were you talking about?
Students, helping them confidence.
Oh yeah,
Being-
thank you. Yeah, building confidence, but also again telling them there are going to be things on this test that you do not know.
Yeah.
But if you don't make that a part of their 165 days
Yeah.
prior to that, where you're giving them things that they don't know that you might not even give them the final answer to or the final solution to. Again, that should be, oh, okay, well, I don't know this one, but I'm going to at least put this strategy in place, this strategy in place, and this strategy in place to try my best.
Yep.
But also, I'm not going to sit here and panic.
Yeah.
I have seen more kids cry, melt down over one question that they did not know the answer
For
to because
15
they had
minutes.
never been taught.
We had a girl
But-
poop her pants.
But this is,
And that is not okay. I'm not even kidding.
No,
I'm not even
know,
kidding.
I know.
Because
It's
they
a
were
life
So
too
scared.
much.
So
That is too
scared.
much.
It's a life skill because what
Correct.
happens in life when you get to not even a test
Yeah.
situation, but a life. Think about adults. Oh my gosh, how many times we don't know the answer to something.
Yeah.
We don't know we're having to put the puzzle pieces together to figure out what our solution is going to be, what our end game is going to be. That's a life skill. So I think there are so many valuable life skills if we really prioritize the right lessons, the
Right.
right things paired with those standards for the state. That's where I think the magic sauce is, because I have always had very high achieving results. And it's not because I know every question on the standardized test. I don't even know, like you guys, I don't even know what's on it, but I know what I'm teaching. I know what skill set I'm giving my students beyond the standards to be successful in situations where things are challenging, things are difficult. Yes, I know some of this, but I don't know some of this. And I think that that's, again, what starts happening in testing season is when we spend 2 weeks preparing for the test. There is no way you could ever give
Right.
kids
I also think
Yes.
2 weeks.
that your delivery as a teacher plays every fact, and obviously everything we do, but
Absolutely.
for testing and what it
Yep.
looks like. So like if you're going to motivate and pump up, that's going to have a very different result and a very different reaction from your students than if you're saying, this is so important, you have to do this. If you don't do this, you're not going to go to
Stress
fifth
them out.
grade. That is going to cause the testing
Yes.
anxiety that we don't want to see. So that is not okay if that's how you're presenting this, that this is so important because these scores determine what you're going to do in middle school. Do you not want to have electives in middle? And I've
Don't
seen many
scare 'em.
people say that.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Because it's a coach and the football, like in the locker room. You have to motivate them and build them up for it.
You've gotta
that
give
they
them
go
that
into it like,
confidence.
yeah, I'm gonna crush this
Yep.
fish.
Yeah.
Like I cannot wait to do it. That's how you're gonna get the best results.
Yep.
Not with that kind of
Fear.
poured on pressure, which is often there because that you're telling parents they have to go to bed early, they have to get a great breakfast, they have to do this,
Yeah.
they have to do this. The parents are saying, make sure you do this, make sure you
Yep.
do that. Now it's just like I don't want anyone telling me that as an adult. Nevertheless, a child that like, okay, this is a
It's a
lot.
lot.
You need to know
Yeah.
the importance, but in a way that you feel motivated to go into it.
Because then it's
not
outside of their
oppressive.
norm. If all of a sudden
Correct.
I'm
And it's
sitting down for a
weird.
breakfast in the morning that I've never had before, this is freaking me
If
out.
someone
'cause
told me that for anything, I would
it's not
freak
my
out.
norm.
Like,
Yeah.
literally.
I think a big thing is making sure they have confidence and, like you said, encouraging them, reminding them that they know everything that they need to know. They've done their part all year long. I've done my part. Now you show me what you know.
Yeah.
And that's how I would refer to it. Show me what you know.
Yeah.
Don't get stressed out. Show me what
And the last thing I do want to talk about before we kind of wrap things up is that I think is critical in this conversation about standardized testing is the idea of background knowledge and how that has affected students
Yes.
in standardized testing. Because standardized testing, like we talked about earlier, is not the same as it was when we were in elementary school. I could see it. Okay, here it is. It's the math problem. Let me do it. Now, a math test is basically a reading test. And we know that for
You have
standardized
to read the
testing.
problem correctly.
A writing test is a reading test.
I don't know if you guys were teaching the year in Florida where there was one, it was all over the news. It was about a camel. It was a writing prompt about a camel. If you did not know what a camel was, you could not perform. None of our students knew what a camel was. And this was all over the news, in papers, all these things that this camel held them back from performing well because they had no. We live in Florida. We don't have camels. That is not something a lot of our students had experience or background knowledge.
We're lucky if they know what snow is.
Right.
Right.
Literally. So that background knowledge
An
of
alligator and
students
everything will be okay.
is critical in what plays a factor in that. There's a
Bias.
lot of these passages that are about things that make no sense to even adults sometimes. Like when they release old tests or things like that. I'm like, what is this even about? And at some point somewhere,
I
someone had to read
omit
that
that
as a
source
student.
because I'm like,
Correct.
that was a
The ones that become a practice test and you try and teach them
Yes.
testing strategies with that practice
think
test,
about
and
it.
I still don't know what they're
I know,
talking about.
literally, like that's a problem.
Yeah,
'cause
that's a problem.
That's not actually gonna move
No.
kids or give us the information we know. So that background knowledge is key. And unfortunately, whoever's making these tests
That's just
is
test
not
for
taking that
test.
into consideration.
Test
at
for
all.
test.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to add, I know we're going to wrap up shortly, but we have all of this angst and all of this preparedness and all of this anxiety leading up to the tests. We take the test, but then what happens after
Yeah.
the
Yes.
standardized test?
That's
Do we
huge.
look at the data or do we just have them watch movies all day long until the end of the school day, until the end of the school year?
And even
a
once
lot
the
of times
results
that's
are
what
out,
happens.
they're so late come that school year.
And in the
You don't
summer.
even have the
Can't-
students
It's
anymore.
hard to use.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what are we going to do? Well, the teachers are going to ask me, do you have any great PBLs that they can do for the end of the school days? Because I don't know what to do. And then I'm like, well, why don't you start with the next year's grade level? Maybe you can pull some of that information in or remediate what you know your students didn't know
Right.
from that test.
It's like, the game is over. The
Yeah.
spell's over. We
So-
don't have to do it. Like that is terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I just think there's just so many thoughts that I have too, and I wish we could all, have a little magic wand. Because I'm even like, it would be more beneficial to have standardized testing in December and test from December to December, and then that's two teachers. Number one, I mean, I know that's going to be hard for the teacher, but is the data for us, or is it for the
them.
kids? Like, because at the end of the day, I don't care who's teaching what. I want to see
Kids need to know
what
it.
this kid knows,
This is really
right?
important.
Versus, oh, well, that teacher must not have taught. Okay, well, maybe they didn't have the data. Maybe they didn't have that information. So, I mean, I even think shifting, which that's never going to happen. That's a dream world. But,
Yeah.
Yeah. Hope King Elementary when that opens. Yeah, there you go.
well, I mean, I would
go.
love to get in a room with people who every teacher would love
You
to get in
let
a
me
room
know.
with people
Yeah.
who write these
We'll
tests.
be
I
there.
don't even know who they are.
Who are
I
they?
think they probably hide.
that right.
Yes, I think they probably hide from teacher society.
They don't want
because
people to
they
know.
don't
I
know. They
literally
would
always
never
would tell
wanna
my students,
know.
the old ladies who work in, I'd say Tallahassee because we're from Florida. So the capital, like that's who they are. I
They
just
probably
picture them
Honestly,
all-
pseudo-names
at
on
this
Indeed.
point, it's probably AI.
You're
ChatGPT is writing
You're
a test
right.
next year.
Literally.
Exactly
You're
what it
probably
is.
right.
It's
It's-
probably
I mean, I
just
wouldn't be
magic
surprised.
AI.
It's so true. I mean, but again, what are we doing with this information? And if we're going to put that much emphasis on it, what is the outcomes that we're seeing from it, and what are we doing? I mean, that's a whole other part of the conversation. But I do think, again, it goes back to just self-reflection for you as the teacher in your classroom, and even having these conversations school-wide. I think is so important for what is testing going to be for us, what is the narrative that we're going to create for students, for teachers, and for parents, and then all being on board with that messaging. Because I think messaging and narratives can be a game changer with, again, the perception built around.
Yeah. And then lastly, for the coaching point of view, for any coaches listening out there, start your PDs in the beginning of the year with unpacking standards so that your teachers know exactly what they're supposed to be teaching quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and finally in quarter 4, which is the end game, which is the end goal. If you don't unpack the standards with your teachers, and let's just be honest, we're hiring anyone that can come and
That's right.
Yeah.
Be in a classroom, be a
So
body.
of course, we're teaching people that have never taught a day in their life. So we're teaching management first, because how can anything? And I'm sorry, I know we don't have too much time, but we're teaching.
Go, part 2.
We're teaching management first, and then we're teaching engagement, because how can you engage your students with the content you're about to teach if you don't know how to get their attention, right? And so a lot of times we're tackling these impact cycles prior, and then before that. She says something on the board to read.
Oh, there you go.
And so before that, we have to do all these impact cycles where it comes to management, engagement, and then the content. So for any coaches listening, make sure that you really talk about those cycles with your new teachers or non-new teachers, but working in your school personnel, so that this way your students get all the resources that they need.
That is huge. And funny that you should say that, because actually we've been working on planning all of the national conference content for the upcoming national conference. And that is exactly what we're calling it, Get Your Teach On's Playbook. And it is a
Conference guides now available at getyourteacheron.com.
I was waiting for the plug. But there is the planning playbook, then there's the management and engagement playbook, and then there's the actual instructional playbook, because it does have to go.
Changer.
Yeah, it does. There is a certain, I think, cadence.
criteria.
Yeah, for really getting the most out of those learning
Or
opportunities.
scaffolding.
I was going to
them
say
too.
it has to be scaffolded.
Yeah.
Like a little pyramid to get
Mm-hmm.
the end goal.
Yeah. Would you like to share Chase's research?
Yes, it went
in
away.
case
It went away.
anybody
There we
was
go. So
curious?
this is, I'm assuming, in relation to who writes the question for standardized testing. Now, we don't have any citations of where this information came from. So take it
PBS
as what
has
you did.
a-
There's also capital letters.
If you're mad about it, take
Hopefully
it out with
Chase did it.
Chase. His
Yeah,
Instagram handle
Chase
is
at
Chase.
hopeandwadeking.com. You can email all complaints on the research there. But it says textbook companies write the questions per a PBS article. So PBS did that. So probably Elmo, Big Bird, and his friends did the research on this one. Companies like McGraw-Hill, Riverside, Harcourt, this article said that they write that. So probably someone who works for PBS is using AI. like
Which
you
could
guys said.
also be, I
Like,
don't know, that even
that
stresses
doesn't
me
even
out
make
too,
sense.
because I feel like if they're the ones writing the
It's probably
questions,
true because it
why
doesn't
is
make
the
sense.
curriculum not
Correct.
matching
That
the
part.
test
That
more?
part.
It
Exactly.
should be a walk in the park. It
Yes.
should be
Right.
the same word problem.
Because they,
Apples to
they,
apples.
they want you to
Like,
shift from the other curriculum to their curriculum.
Yeah,
So
They
they're
want
like,
critical
that
thinking
didn't
and
work for
problem
us. I
solving
need
to
you to use our curriculum.
What if it's all a textbook company strategy?
Instead of big government,
I
it's
bet that
big
means
curriculum.
This is why
Hill right now.
we
Oh,
are.
we
this,
cracked the code, guys.
this is why schools
We
are
cracked the
always saying,
code.
"Oh, we got to get a new curriculum. Got to get a new curriculum," because they want you to
They want it by the
money.
standardized testing. So you're
Just throw out those textbooks. Get some new
It
ones.
benefits all of them because you're constantly rotating them in that circle.
There we
Once
go,
we get
and
better.
that's it
Oh
for
my
this
gosh.
episode of The Flip Side. Make sure you catch a new episode every Monday. Bree and Christy, thank you guys so much for
Thank you
joining
guys
us.
for having us.
Let them know where they can follow you for more things, Bree and Christy.
You can follow us on Instagram at 2 Tampa Coaches.
2 Tampa Coaches. Awesome. We'll have to make sure you guys are back on this couch for another episode. Make sure you tune in every Monday for a brand new episode. But until then, we will catch you on The Flip Side. Bye, guys. Have a great week.